Well, news of the loss of life outside Gaza City sparked a debate in the Dáil today, and joining me to discuss that and more is Fianna Fáil Senator and Leader of the Seanad Lisa Chambers and People Before Profit TD Paul Murphy. And joining us down the line tonight is Executive Director at Amnesty International USA, Paul O'Brien. You're all very welcome along to the programme. Israel has been accused of denying aid to a starving population, and what we heard from Sinn Féin's Matt Carthy, he put it to the Taoiseach, Lisa Chambers, if Micheál Martin accepted what is happening in Gaza is genocide.
Yeah, look, I think this is... we're running out of words to describe what we're watching unfold since October 7th. But the Irish government have been consistent and clear since day one. We have called for peace, for a ceasefire, and we've maintained our position for a two-state solution. That has remained unchanged. And I've listened to numerous debates since that point between the Dáil and the Seanad, where I've heard opposition leaders acknowledge that the government have been strong on this. So this is not an issue that divides Ireland. We are united in our support for Palestine and for a ceasefire. And I'm not sure why some politicians are seeking to sow divisions here and to try and whip up anger and emotion on what is already an issue that is really upsetting people, to try and make people more angry and upset here and trying to tell people that their government isn't doing enough, because that's just not the case. Last week, our government, our Attorney General, presented Ireland's case to the ICG Advisory Council, and we put forward our case that we believe Israel...
Yeah, that's been a long-running case. Well, that was prior to October 7th and the aftermath.
But even still, the appearance of the Attorney General last week putting forward Ireland's case that we believe there have been breaches of international law by Israel. So we've been very strong. And also the Taoiseach and the, along with Spain, Ireland and Spain have written a letter to Ursula von der Leyen at an EU level looking for the Israel-EU agreement to be reviewed immediately to see if there have been breaches. So we have been leading on this. And I think to see Sinn Féin try to stir up emotion and anger, to try and sow division, when at the outset of this, their links to Hamas and those that they associate with were very much front and centre, which they've kind of pulled back from.
Sorry, Lisa, just to clarify what you said there, you were saying that Sinn Féin has links to Hamas?
Prior to all of this, that was accepted, that there were links, that there was communication. But I think at the very outset...
What sort of communication? Was this where they engaged with, probably it was a government leader,
at a public
the Gaza
event,
Strip,
yes.
at a public meeting?
There was a meeting, an online meeting as well.
I mean, does that amount to links to Hamas?
Well, I think the point I'm making is that...
I'm saying that because we don't have Sinn Féin here to counter that.
No, absolutely, and I know that's your job is to put those questions back. My point is that on an issue where the Irish public are united, where the government is doing everything it can to advocate for the people of Palestine, to try and sow division in this country, I think is the wrong approach. And I think Ireland has led from the front on this. We have used our voice, our mandate, at a UN level, at an EU level. I think we are all in agreement that what is happening is abhorrent, and we want to see a ceasefire now. But
all right, OK. Sorry, I want to just get Paul in on this. Are we seeing real, disagreement between, what you're saying and what the government is saying on this? And what do you say to that charge of political opportunism?
The government is displaying scandalous moral cowardice on the issue of Palestine. They refuse, Micheál Martin today refused to call it genocide. When the people of Palestine are being starved and when they gather to try and get food, they're being mowed down. They refused to call it genocide. They refused to state clearly that they will join the case by South Africa in the International Court of Justice against Israel.
Just on that, because I know that was a charge that Matt Carthy certainly put to Micheál Martin, which he said, we have not failed to intervene in any case. South Africa itself has not filed the memorial on that case yet, and they will do that in 2 or 3 months' time, and that there is a process underway there.
Yeah, but the Irish government refuses to state, as Germany has stated, we're going to intervene on the side of Israel. The Irish government refuses to do that, and what instead they did is they put an amendment before the Dáil to get the Dáil to vote to ask the government to strongly consider intervening. They have refused to expel the Israeli ambassador. The Taoiseach plans to go over on March 17th to hand over a bowl of shamrock to Joe Biden, who is funding and supporting this genocide. So what we have had from the government is words, and words that are certainly better than the words of Ursula von der Leyen or Joe Biden or Rishi Sunak, absolutely. But we have had a complete absence of action. So you don't accept, Paul, that on a world stage that we have stood up and we have condemned what is happening in Gaza and condemned Israel for that? Compared to Europe, compared to the US, the Irish government has said better things, correct. Right. But it is not acted. Okay. And you can contrast it, for example, in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Okay. Micheál Martin called that genocide. The Irish government expelled diplomats. We imposed sanctions. What was the difference? The difference is that the US opposes Russia's invasion of Ukraine while it supports Israel's genocide. That's why the Irish government refuses to take any action. Lisa, just to bring you in on that, you said there's no point of difference between what you're saying and what's being said in the opposition benches. We can see from what Paul is saying that there are strong differences in how this should be approached.
I think we're united in our condemnation of what's happening in Gaza. We are united in our call for a ceasefire, and we are united in our call for peace and a two-state solution. So that's what I think and that's the fundamentals. In terms of the South African case at the ICJ, the Irish government has said it will look at the findings of the court and it will intervene if it is appropriate. It will consult with South Africa on that. And it's also the case, and Paul might acknowledge this. So that's a case of making a call on this in a couple of months' time. It's not usual for states to intervene until the applicant, in this case South Africa, published its memorial. So we haven't done that. It's not that you can't, it's just not the usual process. So we are following the process that has always been followed. In relation to the point made by Paul in relation to the US, of course, our Taoiseach will travel to the US on St. Patrick's Day, and our ministers will travel across the globe to represent our country and our people and to make sure that we are front and centre on that day because it's of benefit to Ireland. And to suggest that we shouldn't do that, I think, is just outrageous. We should do everything in our power to stop a genocide. No, we're doing absolutely nothing. We're doing nothing. I want to bring in Paul O'Brien now. I want to bring in Paul O'Brien from Amnesty USA. And you might have heard some of that discussion, Paul. Specifically, actually talking about Leo Varadkar, who will be heading over to the White House on St. Patrick's Day. From your viewpoint, being over Amnesty in the US, what message do you think he should be bringing to Joe Biden? And will that message have real traction there?
So the message needs to be strong. And yes, I believe it will have traction because of the time we are in, because of President Biden's particular relationship to Ireland. He takes a lot of pride in it. And the fact is, he's in a real dilemma now. He has singularly failed to represent appropriately what he said when he campaigned, the human rights concerns of the United States in how he is engaged with Gaza. He has treated them first and foremost as an ally that he's not willing to bring a stick towards. And as a consequence, Israel has had a fairly free hand in how it's conducted itself, and we're seeing the ramifications of that. For Ireland, which considers itself an ally of the United States, to go and not bring, and I do think it's brought a strong moral voice to the world stage on Gaza, but to not bring a sense that sometimes allies have to hold each other accountable and make that message firmly heard so that President Biden understands not just the moral authority of the point we make, but the political consequences of it. And in this moment in the United States, that matters.
All right. And do you believe it can have influence?
Well, it's been very hard. I mean, you've got a president here who, before 30,000 had died, but we had, and 20,000 of those are women and children. We were in the tens of thousands. He was describing the Israeli response as over the top, and that was as far as he got in criticizing the Israelis. People here believe that it is President Biden, that the advice he's getting is that he needs to show a much firmer hand to Netanyahu, and he needs to do it publicly. But he's still refusing to do it. He's got to hear from more people why that's not just the right thing to do, but it's very important for our world. The way that the United States shows up on human rights concerns sends a signal to everyone. And what he's failing to do now is absolutely catastrophic for people in Gaza, but it's going to have far greater consequences for our world and the world that President Biden says he claims about.
Okay, Paul.
So he claims it. Yeah.
Okay, Paul, I just want to get your reaction to the incident, the appalling situation in which over 100 people were killed and they're saying 700 others wounded outside Gaza City when aid trucks arrived, and Palestinian officials saying that Israeli troops fired on people. We got condemnation from the UN Secretary-General and denials from Israel all throughout the day. What's your assessment of what happened, and do you believe that this amounts to a war crime?
Well, yes, but let me say, I've been talking to humanitarians all day about this for similar reasons to the journalistic concerns you had earlier. There is limited access, but there's no doubt in any minds of anyone that I spoke to today. First, the numbers, and it's not just the 110 confirmed fatalities, but hundreds and hundreds. I've heard everything from 700 to 1,000 in terms of wounded, many of them fatally. So we will see the fatality numbers rising in the days ahead. There's no doubt that whether it was caused by the perceived fears of the Israeli militaries as people went to get food and some were hurt as they sought to get food, or whether they were directly shot, this is a direct consequence of the way that Israel is conducting this conflict. In northern Gaza, children are showing up in hospitals and dying of malnutrition. It's been increasingly reported over these last days. Food is being weaponized. The lack of food is becoming a life and death issue now across the board. So when you bring people together in the hope of getting too little food too late, and then there are incidences, Israel as an occupying force is responsible for all of the lives on the ground there. So they're responsible one way or the other, whether they shot them directly or they created the conditions under which people died. Israel needs to be held to account for this, and there needs to be a full investigation of the manner in which this happened. A month ago, the International Court of Justice said and laid out the conditions that Israel needed to comply with in order to avoid the risk of an impending genocide. It has complied with none of those, and today is yet another incident that demonstrates that.
Thanks for that, Paul. That is the point that has been made about the ICJ, and in there, I suppose it was a preliminary ruling, or they had 6 orders to Israel, among them allowing aid in unhindered in order to prevent genocide. Given the starvation levels we're seeing and the fact that aid is simply not getting through to people, UN officials say there has been no aid delivered by them, by their agencies, in a month to northern Gaza. What do you believe Israel is doing about those orders that have been issued to them from the ICJ?
When we look at what Israel is doing and how they're conducting their offensive in Gaza, they are murdering people, they are butchering people. People have been displaced 3, 4 and 5 times. They've been funneled towards Rafah. They've been told to move again. My view, and the view I think of most reasonable people, is that they need to be brought to justice and these crimes investigated, and that will happen. And Ireland has been one of the few countries, I think, that has really stood out from the crowd in terms of our language. And language matters.
What do we do now? Because there is that frustration that investigations will come and they'll come down the line, and even in the CJ case, in the case that South Africa is taking, that case will take years.
Well, what Ireland is doing now,
what happens
and
right now?
Let's be honest about what Ireland can do and our limitations as a small country. We're using our voice at an EU level. We've called for sanctions for the occupying forces in the West Bank. We're looking for a review of trade between the EU and Israel. We're putting pressure on the US as best we can. And we've continued to fund UNRWA when other countries have pulled back. So everything we can do as a small island, as a member of the EU, we are doing everything we can.
Are we assessing how we will use these global trips? Because there's a minister, dozens of trips taking place right around the globe.
As happens every year.
By members of government, as happens every year. But is there political impetus to send a message on this in the cities that you're visiting and the governments you're meeting?
If we can take the examples set by our ministers since October 7th, every opportunity we have had to advocate for peace and a ceasefire, we have taken it, and we will continue to do that. But Ireland is only one country in this, and everything we can do, we are doing and we will do. And Israel, Israel have committed war crimes.
It is not true.
And they will be prosecuted for what they have done.
True
and it is, but
that we are
Paul,
doing everything we can.
You're not being reasonable.
I just want to let Paul
You're usually not reasonable.
It is not true.
It is true.
Can I list a series of other things that could be done? Israel must be isolated on the world stage. Multiple countries, including South Africa, have expelled Israeli ambassador. Ireland could do that. That would create a pressure and environment. We would be the first European country to do it. There is talk of it in terms of Belgium, in terms of the Spanish state. The question will be put on the agenda, isolating
Israel. And what we consistently hear,
That's
and
we could stop
will say
spending
that
money to Israeli armaments corporations. We've spent millions of euros of Irish public money to Israeli armaments companies. Are you in favour of stopping that?
Of all,
is that something else that we could do?
Can I respond? Are you going to keep shouting across the table?
Is that
Can I
something
respond?
we could do?
So in terms of our aid to Palestine, we're one of the few countries that continue to
actually just specifically on that, Lisa, because I know that we talked about EU and Israeli trade agreements and that, you know, our hands are tied and there's only so much we can do and we have to act with the EU on this. But there are specific deals.
So we are looking at
that we have uniquely with Israel that we could do something about if that was something that the state wished to do.
When it comes to international trade with third countries, that is done through the EU. We have an EU-Israel agreement in place, and we have asked for a review of that.
Which isn't
and
going
we've
to happen.
asked for sanctions as well in terms of occupying forces in the
West
Bank.
Are you going to answer about the armaments company?
And we've also said that if it does not move at an EU level, we will do what we can domestically to invoke those sanctions. So as I said, everything that can be done, we are doing. But
so still millions
shouting and banging the table, Paul, is not going to solve anything.
So
in
we're
terms
going to
of expelling the
continue
ambassador,
to give taxpayers money to Israeli armaments companies. And you say we're doing everything we can when we're giving money to the companies that produce the drones that are involved in attacking the people. Don't lie to people that we're doing everything we can.
We are not providing arms to Israel.
No,
Come on now.
but we're giving money to the Israeli armaments companies.
You're not being clear.
Lisa, do you want to respond? Do you want to respond to that charge?
I'm trying to respond. We are not providing arms to Israel.
And in terms
of the ambassador, that's what you're suggesting.
We've given 10 million euros almost to Israeli armaments corporations. We have bought drones from Elbit.
But you're trying to suggest we are providing arms to Israel, and we are not doing that.
Okay, we will have to leave it there for now.
We're buying arms from Israel, and that's scandalous. And we should stop.
My thanks to Paul and to Lisa and to Paul O'Brien, Executive Director of Amnesty US, who joined us via Skype, and Matt Fry at the top of the programme.